Yo, what's happening, Raider Nation? It's your boy Soto here. You know what it is. Raiders versus the world, talking about the team that the world loves to hate, your Las Vegas Raiders. All right. So we've been breaking down the groups of the on-field drills at the combine. We already did the defensive line, edge rushers, and linebackers. Today, it's kind of a weird mix, but it's the DBs, so corners and safeties, and the tight ends. Now, before we get started, I want to make sure to let everyone know, please subscribe to this channel. We're getting close to our goal, our first goal, actually. But I want to bust through that goal, and I want to keep going to help you guys. I want to spread the Raiders versus the world to all the Raider fans out there in Raider Nation. So please subscribe, like, comment, and share to your socials. It really helps me out. It's the absolute bare minimum you can do to help this channel besides doing absolutely nothing. And now let's get started. All right, up first, the cornerback group, and it's no surprise. Travis Hunter is the first name. He's probably the top-rated corner and maybe one of the, if not the top rated wide receiver in this draft class. He's a rare athlete, a rare blend of football IQ, speed, acceleration, dynamic play, ball skills. He's just a baller, dude. He's a baller, and you just watch him play for a little bit, and you can see him pop off the screen. As in life, a person's strength may also be their weakness. Now, a thing that I'm hearing a lot and I'm reading a lot is scouts are a little bit concerned with Travis Hunter's desire to go both ways. Now, he played damn near every single snap in college. He's not going to be able to do that in the pros. It's just not possible to do. His ceiling is a lot higher at corner than it is at wide receiver. Although the skills are the same, just the size is a little bit kind of a bit of a drawback at receiver. He's about 5'10", 5'11". He's not 6 feet. And normally the more elite receivers are a little bit bigger and taller. They can get up and have a larger catch radius. Now, although Travis Hunter's catch radius is quite big for his size, it's not elite in any sense. But everything that he does on the defensive side is elite. His recognition, his reaction, his ball skills, his movement skills, everything is top notch when it comes to Travis Hunter. So I believe that he's going to be a corner first with a small sub package at receiver, maybe a little bit more developed than what Deion Sanders did, and to a certain extent what Charles Woodson did as well. But for right now, I want to see him test. I just want to see where he is in relations to other corners. There's no doubt in my mind that Travis Hunter is the number one corner in this draft. I just want to see him set a bar at the combine to see how everyone else stacks up to him. Right. Up next with corners, it's Will Johnson from Michigan. Okay. Will Johnson is like the physical prototype for today's corners. He's tall, he's long, he's quick, he's agile, and he's got ball skills. Okay, there's no perfect prospect, right? So what's the issue? Okay, well, despite his scheme versatility and his his knowledge of the game, he does take a lot of chances at times. Now, when those chances pay off, they pay off big time. But he does tend to kind of bite a little bit sometimes on double moves, and he can get confused sometimes with some route concepts. But that's just nitpicking at this point. The main issue with Will Johnson is the fact that he's coming off of an injury that cut his last season short at Michigan. How well is he going to run? How fast is he going to run? That's the main issue here. If Will Johnson runs a good time, he's going to be gone top 7 picks. If he runs a little bit of a slower time, he can go from that 8 to 12 range-ish, maybe even higher, depending on how slow he runs. It's that big of a difference in the NFL. If you're going to be an elite shutdown corner, you have to be able to run fast. It's just the long and short of it. That's the only question that needs to be answered when it comes to Will Johnson, because everything else, he has it. All right, from Texas, Jahdae Barron is up next. Now, Jahdae Barron is a little bit of a, I don't know. He has a lot of position versatility. He plays, press man. He's up in the box. He plays deep safety sometimes as well, and he does it all pretty well. He's a little bit on the smaller side, but he does definitely like to hit, even though he's a little bit smaller. He's the type of guy that you want in the modern NFL, a guy that can kind of you can flip sides, and it's not a big deal for him. He can do anything from anywhere. He has a little bit of an issue. Keeping up with his guys a little bit deep. He kind of focuses on the ball a little bit too much sometimes, and he loses his assignment, but that's just few and far between. That's not a big deal with him. He's got some scheme versatility, and he plays everywhere really well. He's definitely a first-round pick, and depending on the scheme that he goes to, he'll be either a safety that covers the slot or he'll be a full-time corner. But either way, whoever gets Jahdae Brown's going to get a massive player. All right, up next from East Carolina is Siobhan Revel Jr. Now, this is kind of a bummer because he was a lock to be a first-round draft pick before he hurt his ACL, so he's probably going to dip into round 2. That shows you how good this kid is. Even after an ACL injury, he's going to be drafted in the top 2 rounds. The issue that we have here is he needs to be in a specific system to kind of take advantage of his strengths. Now, he's a total height, weight, speed guy. He's a big corner. He likes to play physical. He doesn't really do the whole, drop back and zone coverage and kind of keep your eye on the court. That's not his deal. His deal is getting up into a guy's face, mirroring him, just being physical. That's what he does best. If he can go to a team that allow him to do that and maybe bring him along a little bit slower because he's coming back from injury, whoever gets him is going to get a steal in this draft. All right, next up is Benjamin Morrison from Notre Dame. You're talking about a physical corner. This is it. This guy is a man coverage corner. That's what you want. He's kind of like a Marlon Humphreys in a way early in his career where his physical attributes are going to help him kind of get along until his technique catches up. Now, his technique isn't bad, but he's going to get some refinement in the NFL. Morrison is quick and athletic, and he has good route recognition. All he needs to do is just stay a little bit more disciplined in his approach as far as his technique, and this guy has Pro Bowl written all over him. All right, next up is Ole Miss corner Trey Amos. Trey Amos is got the length for the NFL right away. He's got the physicality too. He's a good hitter, and he doesn't mind getting his nose in there against the run game. His issue is, and you're going to see this a lot with the young corners, is in zone coverage, because you can get pulled away from an area from route concepts, and it's a lot easier to just follow a guy around than to kind of know what you're doing against the zone beater route concept. So that's the issue that we have with Trey Amos. He's physical. He knows what he's doing against man coverage. He'd be a good sub-package corner initially until he gets a little bit more comfortable with his technique and with his just route recognition against the zone. He has been exposed more than a couple times, especially against the trips formation. Just a lot of crossing, a lot of mixing up, and he follows the wrong guy, and the guy's wide open. It happens with young corners. It's a difficult position to play, especially with all like the nuances and offenses these days. It's difficult to play that position, especially in zone coverage. So he's going to get better at it. He's going to get some good coaching wherever he goes, and potentially have some Pro Bowl in him. We'll see, but he projects to be a late day 2 pick. All right, now right after I talk about how young corners have issues with zone coverage and they're better against man, this is the exact opposite with Zy Alexander out of LSU. He's much better in zone coverage than he is in man coverage. It's basically his length, his size, and his aggressiveness that allow him to be such a good player in zone coverage. He's a little bit high sometimes in coverage, so he can get beat with crisp route running, which, that's not atypical of a corner, but he needs to get better at sitting low and driving off of his back pedal. He's really good in zone, and he's definitely a thumper in the run game. So those two alone will help him make a squad initially on special teams and some sub packages. When he refines his man skills, this guy's going to be a starter for a lot of years. All right, next up is Azure Thomas from Florida State. This dude is big, and he's impressive, okay? He's 6'2", he's got long arms, he's got that dog mentality in him. He's really he accepts a challenge, and he wants to be challenged, and he challenges receivers as well. The one thing is that aggressiveness can cause him to miss some tackles and kind of get exposed a little bit against some more top-end receivers. For right now, his physical tools are going to be a huge gain in the special teams and maybe in some sub packages as well, but he's not quite yet ready technique-wise to handle some of the top receivers in the NFL. So after a couple of years of refinement and some coaching on his technique, he'll be a solid rotational piece or even a solid starter if he tops out. It's all going to be on him, how hard he wants to work and how hard he wants to focus on his technique, because the physical tools are definitely there. All right, Iowa State cornered Darian Porter is up next. Now, Darian Porter is a physical freak, man. He's big, he's tall, he's got long arms. He can run like the wind. The issue is he hasn't really played corner full time for very long. He's more of like a return specialist type of guy, gunner on like punt coverage, and he's going to excel at that. He's going to do really well for somebody in special teams initially. He needs a lot of work with his technique, and he needs a lot of work just kind of seeing more routes, identifying route concepts and stuff like that. If he can find a team that can stay patient with him, who will allow him to develop, a couple years down the road, he can be a solid contributor on defense. But for right now, he's more of a special teams guy. It's just his physical attributes put him up this high on the list because they are out of this world. All right, rounding out the list is Maxwell Hairston from Kentucky. Another guy that kind of flipped the script on me. He's better in zone than he is in man. And it's more so a size thing with him. Now, he's plenty tall enough. It's just he's a little leaner, okay? So he can get bodied by some of these bigger receivers. And that does tend to happen to him. Now, he's better in zone because of that. And his zone coverage is good. He's quick, he's fast, he's got good ball skills, and he has really good route recognition. Probably because he's had to excel more in zone, and he does get exposed a little bit against man coverage. So he needs to add a little bit of size to him. Hopefully he can do that without losing any of his speed and quickness. If he can do that and he can refine some of his technique in man coverage, he can be a solid contributor in a few years. For right now, he's going to be more of a special teams guy and a sub-package guy in zone coverage. But watch out for this kid. He is special. He does have a lot of good physical traits. And even though he's a little bit on the thinner side, he is a heavy tackler. So he does have that mentality to be a physical presence on the defense. Just needs to make sure he adds a little bit of weight to him so he doesn't get pushed around by these bigger receivers out there in the NFL. All right, safeties are up next. And up first is Nick Emenwari from South Carolina. You might be thinking to yourself, wait, what happened to Malachi Starks? Trust me, Nick Emenwari is, I think, a better prospect than Malachi Starks. When you think Emenwari, think of like a Cam Chancellor, but with like much better coverage skills. I'm talking much better. He's big. He's a huge hitter. He recognizes route concepts quickly. And he lays the thunder, dude. This guy can hit. Much better in coverage skills against the bigger tight ends and modern NFL offenses. And this guy's going to be a contributor right away on defense. And he's got Pro Bowl, maybe even All Pro written all over him. He's going to be special. With the right coaching, he can be one of the best in the NFL. Okay, up next from Georgia is Malachi Starks. Okay, here's the issue with Malachi Starks. He's physical. He's a thumper. He can play in the box. He can do everything you need him to do against the run. His coverage skills need some work. He can play a deep safety, and he's quick enough and fast enough to catch up to those deep balls. But if you ask him to protect an area or cover a man specifically, he can get exposed. He has the athletic ability. He has the talent. He has the recognition to be able to improve on this. The issue is at Georgia, they didn't really ask him to do too much of this stuff. Okay, I'm not giving him any passes. What he does in the NFL from now on is going to be all up to him and the coaching staff he goes to, because when you're getting Malachi Starks right now, you're getting a very raw prospect, but a raw prospect with a lot of elite traits. Okay, up next is Xavier Watts from Notre Dame. Now, he hasn't been a safety for too long. He doesn't have too much of experience being a safety, but his physical tools and his abilities put him up on this list. He's got like ball skills like a top-end receiver. He goes out there and he's a turnover machine. The issue is he's much better in zone coverage than he is in man. And he can get fooled a little bit with some route concepts when he's in zone. It's not a huge thing where he's not undraftable or anything like that. But he does have some glaring weaknesses in his game. Fortunately for him, his physical tools and his ball skills help him put him on the field pretty quickly in the NFL on top of his special teams play. And if he gets with the right team, with the right scheme, and the right coaches, the sky's the limit for Xavier Watts. Right up next out of Texas is Andrew Mukuba. Andrew Mukuba is a little bit undersized, okay? But he plays big. He's got elite athletic traits, and he excels in or out. So in the box as a box safety or deep, playing that center field safety. He gets a little bit in trouble in that intermediate zone where he has to cover large spaces or he has to cover tight ends across the middle, stuff like that. He can get exposed because of his size. Now, he does need to have some refinement of his technique. That's nothing that can't happen because he's a hard worker and he has elite physical traits. What you're looking at with him right away is to be a heavy contributor on special teams and be a sub package like a nickel or dime type of safety, an extra guy. If a team can kind of cover up his deficiencies and where he needs to improve initially, and he works hard at what he needs to do, Andrew Mukuba can be a definite starter in the NFL in just a couple of years and a heavy contributor right away on special teams. All right, Malachi Moore is up next from Alabama. Now, Malachi Moore is the exact opposite of a lot of these prospects coming up in the safety position. What you see a lot of times with these safety prospects is their technique isn't all that great, but their physical traits are through the roof. Malachi Moore is a little bit different. His technique is great. He is like a vet level in the NFL in his recognition, in his breaks, in his ball skill, stuff like that. But his physical traits aren't the best. Where he lands in this draft is going to be pretty much solely dependent on how fast he runs. Think of Chris Smith a couple years ago that the Raiders got in the late rounds. He's a great player, but his physical traits just aren't there for him to play an every down game in the NFL. Now, if Malachi Moore can run a little bit faster than people think he can, I think he can be up maybe a middle round guy, maybe late third, early fourth, something fifth round, something like that. If he runs a little bit poor, expect him to be a little bit of a late round pick and a project guy, definitely a special teams contributor. It's all going to depend on how fast he runs. Okay, up next from Iowa, Sebastian Castro. Now, Sebastian Castro doesn't follow in the line of defensive backs the last few years coming out of Iowa. He's not a blazing burner, okay? But he's big, he's aggressive, he's smart, and he knows how to play. Now, he's going to be either like a big slot corner or like a box safety. He's going to contribute a lot in special teams. He's really smart. He has good route recognition, and he just plays with an aggression that not many do in the secondary. The issue that we're going to have here is just some of the physical traits, especially speed-wise, aren't where they need to be right now. His technique needs to be cleaned up a little bit. He's so smart and he's so quick and able to adjust and adapt to different route concepts. He can make up for some of that lack of speed. Now, we'll see how he runs. He doesn't play super fast, so it may be just a kind of a defensive scheme issue with him. But if he runs a little bit quicker, he's going to go maybe in the mid rounds, I would say. But keep an eye on Sebastian Castro. All right, safety out of Penn State, Kevin Winston Jr. is up next. Now, Kevin Winston Jr. does have the physical tools. The issue that you're going to see with him is kind of his fluidity in his hips and his ability to change direction. A lot of these guys are really fast straight line, but in the secondary, you got to be fast everywhere. Forwards, backwards, side to side, diagonal. It's a lot of it is technique. I'll give him that. A lot of it's technique and the big thing for him in the combine is to show that he's got the hip flexibility and the fluidity to change directions the way he's going to need to cover some of these NFL receivers and tight ends. For right now, he's going to be a huge contributor on special teams and maybe start in a year or two. If that happens, the team who selects him is going to get a great fit at safety because of his mentality, his smarts, and his willingness to tackle. He's got a low missed tackle rate. When he comes and gets you, he comes and gets you and puts you down. Lathan Ransom out of Ohio State is next. Lathan Ransom does have the physical tools, okay? He has the ability, he has the smarts, and he has really good instincts as a safety. The issue you're going to see here is just his overall athletic ability. He's plenty physical enough. The issue we're going to see is his change of direction, being able to keep up with some of these receivers and tight ends and how they play in the league right now. He's going to be a contributor day one in special teams, and you're going to see that a lot from some of these more physical safeties out there. If he can get his technique under control and if he has the movements, he can be a safety that well outperforms his draft position, which is probably going to be in the mid to late mid rounds. If he can get it together, he's going to be a solid player for anyone who drafts him. But initially, he's going to be a key contributor on special teams. Billy Bowman from Oklahoma is up next. And when it comes to athletic traits, Billy Bowman is super athletic. He's really versatile in how he can play. He can either play the nickel or he can play a deep safety. The issue you're going to see with Billy Bowman is a little bit smaller. This dude is a playmaker, though. He's got great ball skills, and when he gets his hands on the ball, he's housing this thing. It's going to be a little bit more difficult for him. He's a little bit on the smaller side, and he can get exposed by some of the bigger receivers and tight ends he's going to be asked to cover in the NFL. And if he doesn't show that he can cover him right away, you know these offensive coordinators and quarterbacks in the NFL are going to identify him and pick on him. That's going to be the big issue for him. If he can find a way to tighten up his technique so he can play against bigger players, he's going to be a good player in the NFL. For now, he's going to be, again, a key contributor on special teams with his athletic ability and maybe in some sub packages. If he gets his hands on the ball on defense, watch out. This guy's electric. Jalen Reed out of Penn State kind of rounds out the list here for us now. If you're going to put money on a guy to outperform his draft position, it's probably going to be Jalen Reed. He's a physical tone setter, man. He's a leader on the defense. He's a guy that a lot of other players kind of gravitate to, and he's a vocal leader as well. We're going to see his movement skills. This is going to be where he's going to be drafted, okay? His movement skills aren't going to hold him back from improving in the NFL. What they're going to do is if he doesn't run, if he doesn't move well in the combine, he's going to get pushed back in the draft. But anyone who picks up Mr. Reed here is going to get an excellent player. He's going to get a guy that is going to be a really good special teams contributor right away. And he's going to be a guy that can play some sub packages. When he puts it all together technique-wise, maybe loosens up his hips a little bit and is able to kind of change direction a little bit better, he's going to be an excellent player for anyone who selects him. All right, moving on to tight ends. And tight end one is Tyler Warren out of Penn State. This guy is just an ultimate competitor and an ultimate athlete, too. Think of like a Brock Bowers light. He's not quite Brock Bowers in the crispness of his routes, but as far as his hands and his ability to fight for extra yards, they're pretty close. The one thing that separates Brock Bowers, like I said, is his route running ability against anyone. He doesn't win just off of his size. Tyler Warren can do that. He's getting better as a blocker, which is what he's going to need to do. But in this modern NFL where they move the tight ends all over the place, this guy's going to be a weapon for anyone who selects him. He's going to be one of the major targets in the NFL when he shows up on any team out there. He's going to be a big contributor. All right, Michigan's Colston Loveland is next. Now, this guy's huge, okay? He's big, he's fast, he can catch, he's got good hands, he's competitive, and he's physical. The one thing that he needs to work on, but despite his size, is his blocking ability. He's kind of like a mix between like a Tyler Higbee and a George Kittle. He's got the size and he's more athletic than Tyler Higbee, but he's not quite the blocker that George Kittle is. If he were to focus on his blocking and really make it a priority to get better at it, he could be one of the better tight ends in the NFL. He's got Pro Bowl written all over him. He's going to be a steal for anyone who picks him up in the first round. Up next is Mason Taylor out of LSU. Now, you might remember this last name because his dad, Jason Taylor, was a defensive end with Miami Dolphins for a lot of years. He doesn't have quite his dad's athletic ability, but the guy is huge and he's got really big, strong hands. His blocking hasn't quite caught up to his size, but he's getting there. He's much better this last season than he was previously in his college career. Where he's going to excel is in a timing type of offense where the timing and the crispness of his routes is going to get him open. He's not going to be a guy that can just shake people. That's not who he is, okay? He's more of a Jason Witten than a Brock Bowers, okay? He's reliable. He's got good hands, and if you hit him at the right time, he's going to catch the ball. But don't expect him to go one-on-one against somebody in space and just get open whenever he wants. That's just not the guy he is. For how he plays, he's going to be an excellent pick, and he has a really high ceiling. All right, Harold Fanning Jr. out of Bowling Green is up next. Now, think of him as the opposite of Mason Taylor, okay? This guy can shake you. He's got a lot of shake, and he's got great hands. The issue with him is he gets a little bit swallowed up sometimes by some of these bigger defensive linemen. He's going to need to really work on his blocking. Now, it's not bad. It's decent, and it's good enough for him to be a starting tight end, but in order for him to max on his potential, he needs to get much better at blocking and be a much more willing blocker in space. As far as the catching ability and getting open, yeah, Harold Fanning Jr.'s got it. Miami's Gunnar Helm is up next. Now, Gunnar Helm is like in the long line of basketball players turned football players, mostly tight ends. This is who he is. He excels in red zone and short yardage. He's a more of a jump ball type of guy. He uses his athletic ability to get open and to catch balls at high point. The issue is going to be on his crisp route running ability. His route running ability isn't all that great. He doesn't have a really big route tree. He's going to need to get better at his route running if he wants to get more playing time in the NFL. As of right now, he's a really reliable number 2 tight end. He's going to be able to catch ball over almost anyone in the league. The issue is shaking a guy and getting open against tight coverage. It's going to be a little bit of an issue. His blocking is decent. It's okay. But again, he's a former basketball player turned football player. Watch for him to improve with a lot of coaching going forward. If he can do that, he can be a really solid contributor, especially on a team that does a lot of heavy 12 personnel. All right, Aronde Gasson II from Syracuse is up next. Now, Aronde Gasson is going to be a little bit of a tweener, okay? He's either a smaller tight end or he's going to be a bigger receiver slot type of guy. Either way, he can excel in pass catching. The issue we're going to see with him is his blocking ability. That's going to hinder him. On top of that, he's been injured a lot. If he can show that he's healthy now and that he has the movement skills, he can go in the mid rounds and he can be a solid contributor as either a wide receiver or a tight end. But he needs to improve on a couple of things. Definitely his blocking, and he needs to stay healthy. And big for him is just stop being a tweener. Either put on some weight to play tight end or lose a little bit of weight and be a receiver, because right now his tweener, he's a little bit small as a tight end, a little bit bigger receiver, and it's causing him to get injured a little bit more than he wants to. Okay, Miami's Elijah Arroyo is up next. Now, Elijah Arroyo has it all. He's big. He's got great hands. He can get open. He's got good high football IQ. He can block. The main thing with him is his injury history. He gets injured a lot. Now, last season, he stayed relatively healthy, and he had a big year for Cam Ward over in Miami. If he can prove that he can stay healthy, and if he gets a clean bill of health in the combine with the medicals, I can see him being a mid to mid-late round pick. If not, he could go undrafted just because of the medicals. A lot of these teams may have already taken him off the board because of it, which is a shame. But if he can show he's healthy, like I said, in his medicals in the combine, it could give him a little bit of a boost. As far as skills and play skills, he's got that. He just needs to stay healthy, and hopefully he can for his future in the NFL. Oregon's Terrence Ferguson is up next. Now, Terrence Ferguson's kind of a little bit of a head scratcher. This guy, he's pretty good at everything, but he's not elite really at anything. Anything you ask him to do, he can do it, and he can do it pretty well, but he doesn't really excel, and he hasn't really topped out at any one thing, being a tight end. Inline blocking, blocking in space, getting open, catching the ball, route running ability, spatial awareness in the zone, against zone. I don't know, man. He's a little bit of a tough one for me. Now, his ability right now can make him, a day two, like a second, third round pick with a guy who could be a solid contributor for years to come. If he can put it together and he can maybe make himself elite at one thing that he does, he can definitely be a 3-down tight end in this league. Initially, he's going to be a nice tight end 2/tight end 3 out there for a team that uses a lot of tight ends, and a special teams guy. Watch him to see how hard he works. Now, if he tests better than he played, he could go up a little bit higher because these coaches may feel like they can get more out of him, but initially he's going to be probably a backup tight end in the NFL. Mitchell Evans from Notre Dame is up next. Now, Mitchell Evans is a big, solid tight end. He's kind of a throwback tight end to those big, hulking guys who can block and get open when you need him to, on simple routes. He's not super athletic, but that's fine. He has great hands, and he has a little bit of a quickness in his initial move. If you make his routes a little bit longer, he's going to get exposed for not being super quick and athletic. But he can really excel in like multiple tight end packages and be like a second tight end or even a third tight end on a jumbo package. He can play, and he can play really well in the right situation. Don't expect too much of him as a tight end 1 or getting open in space. That's just not who he is. If a team can get him and put him in the right system and scheme, he can be very productive in the NFL. Okay, rounding out the tight end list is Luke Lachey from Iowa. Now, very similar to Mitchell Evans, he's a good tight end, just doesn't have that athletic ability that you want in your kind of modern tight ends in the NFL. He's not going to be able to get open against anybody. He's going to have some issues against some of these bigger safeties or some of these quicker linebackers getting open. But his blocking skills are pretty decent. They're going to get a little bit better with the coaching he's going to get in the NFL. That's where he's going to butter his bread kind of initially. Is going to be in his blocking and his ability to get open in short spaces. He can do that. But again, if you lengthen his route tree a little bit, he's going to get exposed for his athletic ability. Should he be able to improve, he could definitely be a starting tight end in the NFL, but watch him to be a backup tight end initially and contribute heavily on special teams. All right, guys, there you go. There's my quick synopsis on the DBs, so cornerbacks and safeties, and the tight end position. They are on the on-field drills day number 2. I'm really interested to see some of these guys test and see how they do, because it's really going to affect where they get drafted. Hope you guys liked the video. As always, please make sure to subscribe to this channel. It really helped me out a lot. I want to bust through that 1,000 mark, and we might be there already, but the next one after that is 1,500. I think we can do it even faster than we hit 1,000. All right, guys, really appreciate your time. Thank you very much. Let me know what you think about this video in the comments below, and until next time, everybody, peace. Hey, Raider Nation, thanks for watching. There's plenty more where that came from. Go ahead and smash that like button, drop a comment, make sure to subscribe, and share to all your socials. It's the bare minimum you can do without doing absolutely nothing.